It's cold in here. That's what you get for sitting close. Never gonna sit there again, right? Openers aren't here. I think they heard I don't have any candy necklaces left, so they might not be back this week. I have backups, but they were very excited about those candy necklaces. I'll have to go buy more. Those ran out. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So great for us to be together. I got a little worried this afternoon when that sheets of rain started coming down, but it stopped raining just in enough time for us to be able to get to synagogue and remain dry. But now that I'm said that, how many people think that it's going to start raining before we all leave? So, it's rained every day except for 2 since I've moved here. But, it hasn't been bad weather though, right? So this kind of rain is good, right? Until anything worse were to come. So it's so great that we are able to be together. Let us sing the words of Hine Matov. If you need the words, you can find them on page 128 in the prayer book. Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov, yalalai, yalalai, lai, lai, lai. Hine Matov, yalalai, yalalai, lai, lai, lai. Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. How good and how pleasant it is that we are able to sit together. But I'm going to ask you to make sure you know the people maybe that are across from you, because the people that are next to you, you might have come here with. But take a minute to wish somebody that you did not drive to this building with a Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Did everybody try? Say hello to someone that you didn't come here with. It's so easy for us to get stuck in our comfort zone and sit in that same spot and be with those same people. But when we build community, when we sing those words, Hine Matov, the purpose is to build community with everyone. So my challenge to you is every Shabbat, make sure you say Shabbat Shalom to at least one new person. And maybe by the time next Shabbat rolls around, that new person will become your new study partner or your new friend. So we're going to continue doing this as Shabbat goes on. But let us welcome Shabbat with the lighting of Shabbat candles. The blessing you can find on page 120, and I'm going to invite Lynn to light our Shabbat candles for us. All I care is that you're okay. There's matches or there's also a lighter hiding underneath. You have to do the double click on that one. Teamwork. Oh, you got it. Hadlik Ner Shabbat.
Blessed are you, our God, sovereign of the universe, who houses us with mitzvah, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Amen. I swear they're not trick candles. No, every new synagogue I've entered has done something to haze me. So I'm going to decide that this is what all of you decided. I'm going to help you. The wine glass, is that what it was? I mean, maybe it was multiple. Let's just get a straight flow in there.
Oh, that's so good.
got to be a story in that, right? So maybe we'll create our own midrash, that one Shabbat candle flame is so bright and one is small. Maybe it has to do with the emotions we're all going to experience throughout Shabbat. We're going to have our bright moments, and maybe we'll have the dimmer moments and need those bright moments. I don't know. You come up with your own midrash. If you think of one, share it with me afterwards. But there's got to be a story in the fact that every single Shabbat we've had a smidge of trouble lighting our Shabbat candles. Maybe you can teach me, is that like the Louisiana humidity, so matches don't work so well? Possibly. It's getting, as it glows brighter, I'm guessing that it's the ruach, the spirit in the room, bringing us all together. So let us read together on page 124. We're going to read together the reading that starts in the middle of the page, of page 124. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to emit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. So as the sun goes down tonight, we move away from Tu B'Av. So who's heard of Tu B'Av? So today was Tu B'Av, which really just stands for the 15th day of the month of Av. But if you've ever been in Israel on Tu B'Av, the best way for me to explain it to you is like going into a drugstore or a Hallmark on Valentine's Day, but the entire country. Because Tu B'Av is a day of love and celebration. Some people say that Tu B'Av is important because it comes right after Tisha B'Av. And on Tisha B'Av, we wail and we're in despair. So we're reminded about the love that we have in our lives. It actually tells us in our text, Tu B'Av is compared to Yom Kippur. What big comparison. Yom Kippur, that Shabbat Shabbaton, the holiest day on our Jewish calendar, and Tu B'Av, Jewish Valentine's Day, are compared to each other in our writings. So whatever it is for you that brings you love, think about that as we enter Shabbat and we say goodbye to the day of Tu B'Av. So I want us to sing tonight on the top of page 129. I don't know if the tune will be familiar, but the words definitely are. Dodi li ve'ani lo haro'eh. You probably know Dodi li, I am my beloved is mine. These words come from Song of Songs, and because we are ending this day full of love that's supposed to bring us to these moments of joy after commemorating Tisha B'Av, I thought we would sing this together. So if you know it, sing with me. If not, just think about these words and what they mean for you. Dodi li vani lo haro'eh bashoshanim dodi li mizot ola min hamidbar mizot ola min hamidbar dodi li vani lo haro'eh bashoshanim dodi li mekuteret mor ulivona mekuteret mor ulivona dodi li vani For me, every time I hear that song, I am transported back to my summers where I spent at Goldman Union Camp Institute, which is the Reform Jewish overnight camp in the Indiana area, in Indianapolis. And every single Friday night, the thing Gucci is known for is to be a big singing camp. So every single Friday night after we had Shabbat services and Shabbat dinner, we basically had like a mosh pit of Shabbat song session. And to slow everyone down at the end of that singing, I remember sitting around the table. We turned all the lights off, just the candles that were on the table, and sitting around it with my campers, we locked our pinkies. We did this thing where we put our elbows down on the table, and our song leaders led us in Do Di Li. And every time I hear that, I'm transported to those years where I got to have those moments. And it's moments like that that I think make me realize the joy of community and the joy of being able to celebrate that idea, Tu B'Av, of love and ruach and spirit together. So as we enter Shabbat and we welcome the Sabbath bride, I want you to be transported to whatever moment it is for you that brings you joy. For me, it was that moment so many summers in a row at Gucci. For you, maybe too, it could have been at camp, could have been staring at an ocean, could be sitting in your backyard with a good book or a cup of tea. Whatever it is, let this Shabbat transport you to the place that really makes you feel bliss and at ease. But let us welcome the Sabbath bride now with the words of Lecha Dodi, page 138. We're going to sing together verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. There is this tradition, just like you would greet a guest who came over to your house at dinner by standing up and opening the door, that there is a tradition that we stand up and we face the door when we get to that 9th verse to welcome the Sabbath bride. So when we get to that 9th verse, if you're comfortable, I invite you to rise, face the door, and greet Shabbat. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad Hishmianu el ha-meyuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad L'shem u'tiferet ve'litila Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki hi mekor habracha Merosh mikadem nesucha Sof ma'aseh b'makshava tehila Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri kiva ore kumi ori uri shir daberi kevod Adonai alaich nigla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret Hala, Gam Besimcha Uvesohola, Tochemune Am Segula, Boi Chala, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, Yalalai, Pnei Shabbat, Nekabela, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, Yalalai, Pnei Shabbat, Nekabela. I invite you to be seated. So I had the joy this morning of spending time for the first time with our students that go to the Rainer Center. So this morning, the 2-year-olds came first into this space, and we got to welcome Shabbat. We sang Shabbat songs, we read a Shabbat story, we lit our Shabbat candles. And I don't know if you've ever had an opportunity just to be in a space with a lot of 2-year-olds, but it's just so much energy, right? They were so excited to sing the songs that we sang and welcome Shabbat. And then I got the joy of doing it again with our 3- and 4-year-olds. And it was just such a bright way to start my morning. Our 4-year-olds, I don't know if anybody spends any time in the Rainer Center, are very chatty. They wanted to talk about everything. They were so excited to sing Bim Bam Shabbat Shalom. Their hays were the loudest. They made soup with the song Put the Chicken in the Pot. We sang together and built our matzo ball soup for Shabbat. And then we came to lighting our Shabbat candles. And without me even telling them, all of a sudden, all of these 3- and 4-year-olds went like this before I even told them. And it was that moment this morning for me that just made me realize how lucky we are to pass these prayers, these songs, these traditions down from generation to generation. Some of these tunes you've probably heard forever. Some of them might be new. And like for me, some of them might transport you back to another time in another space. But this morning, seeing the 3- and 4-year-olds without me even telling them after I lit the candles go like this made me realize how important it is that we pass these traditions down. And on Shabbat, we have these moments to be together in community, to invite the Sabbath presence to join us, and also to reenact some of those things that we're told about happened in our text. And one of those is to reenact the relationship between God and the ministering angels. Whatever you believe God to be and whatever you believe those angels to be, we get to welcome them and bring them into our midst as we sing Shalom Aleichem. So think about the moment for you that was like my moment this morning with our 3- and 4-year-olds and what transports you again to those special places. Page 142, let us sing together. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Barchuni L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. page 144. Yitgadal v'kadash shemei rabba be'alma divrach lirtev yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dekol beit Yisrael bagala bagala uvizman kariv ve'imeru amen. Yahei Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam Olam Me'omaya Yitbarach Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yipa'ar V'yitroman V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitale V'yitalal Shemei Dekudashah Le'elam Min Kol Berchata V'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma ve'imeru. I invite you to please rise. Page 146. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. You may be seated. Let us read together in English on page 148. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzivaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. Let us read together on page 151 at the top. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. I invite you, if it is your custom, to please rise for Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. You may be seated. Let us continue chanting together on page 154. Ve'ahavta Adonai Elohecha בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, Adonai Elohechem Emet. Let us read together on the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood. Through the wilderness, but there is no way to get from here except by joining hands, marching together. We continue singing Mi Chamocha, page 158. Mi Chamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi Chamocha nedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilot osei feleh, Nora tehilot osei feleh, Malchutecha ra'u vanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, ze'eli anu ve'ameru, Adonai yimloch, Adonai yimloch, le'olam va'ed. V'ne'emar, ki fada Adonai Yaakov, u'galo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Page 161. We read together in English the prayer that begins in the middle of the page. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. In a moment, we're going to sing those words of Vishamru, that spirited song that reminds us of the joy that Shabbat brings. But before we sing these ancient words, I'm curious. Is anybody excited about something going on? Something we're celebrating? A joy we have in our life? Anybody willing to share anything so we can bring it and add it to our Shabbat joy? Nobody has anything to be joyful for? Wonderful. I'm joyful for that too, since she's hanging out with my daughter now somewhere in this building. Yeah?
My mother turned 8 years old.
That's what's up. Anybody else?
School year for kiddos.
A new school year. My daughter Eliana has now had 2 days of kindergarten. On our first day, there were no tears, not from her or her parents, so it was a good first drop off. Other things that are adding to our Shabbat joy.
My sister's getting married next week.
Very exciting.
I found something that I lost.
Oh, nice. That's hard to do sometimes.
That's a big deal. They got married in January.
They didn't get to go, and so now they're going?
Delayed.
Nice. Delayed. That's exciting. Anybody else? Well, as we think of all of the things we're joyful for, let us add them to our Shabbat joy as we sing on the top of page 162. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam, oti le'olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. I got so excited I wanted to do that Vishamru part over. I know some communities do it double between each verse, and some communities do it one, and I was just so excited I went back to doing it double. So we had a little bit of even extra joy there at the beginning, so thanks for following me on that. We've come to that moment in our service where we enter that tefillah, the central prayers of our service. It reminds us of our past and our avot v'imahot, the ancestors that came before us. It reminds us of Giverot, the strength that God has. And then communally, we end with the words of Kadosh, reminding us that we too can be holy as we partner with God. So I invite you as we enter our Amidah on page 164 to please rise. Adonai sifatai tifta ufiyad yitehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotinu v'Imateinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hadibor, Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chasei Ava v'Imahot, U'mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Abraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol Atavrav Le'Oshia, Morid Hatav, Mechakel Chayim v'ne'eman ata l'chachayot ha'kol. Baruch atah Adonai mechayeh ha'kol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'kol yom hallelujah selah. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el ha'kadosh. I invite you to continue with personal, private, silent prayers, either the words you find in the prayer book until page 180, or just the words you find in your own hearts on this Shabbat evening. And I invite you to be seated whenever you wish. Oh, say shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'yakol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'yakol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. While we were each praying silently, one of the things I noticed was our candles, and they are now equal. They started with one big flame and a small flame, and you would think the candles would be at different heights now. But, so if you're creating your own midrash this evening, your own story of what's happened to our candles, we have another level of meaning we can add, that we've gotten to this moment in our service, the moment where we pause to think about those in need of healing. And now we have two equal bright lights in our midst. So let's take the warmth of those lights and send them to all who are in need of healing. Our Mishaberach prayer for healing can be found in our prayer books on page 371. Tonight, as a congregation, we think of the following people in need of healing: Joy Lewis, Lucy Silva, Christine Weil, Minna Bat Yentel, Mordechai Ben Dina, Rowan Hausman, Anna Carlo, Judy Roheim, Friedel Tamara Bat Liba Bela, Menucha Pesha Bat Charne Umosha, Gretchen Haynes, Dorian Reeson, Steve Sinkoff, Linda Weinstein, and Nathan Zuckerman. If there are others you are thinking of in need of healing, if you'd like to share their names aloud, I invite you to do so as my eyes meet yours. For all those names we said aloud and all those whom we hold in our hearts, we turn together to our Mishaberach prayer of healing, again, page 371. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. As many of you know, because they were with us last weekend, my parents were in town last week. While they were here, they played a lot of games with my daughter Eliana. Some games familiar to many, like Go Fish or Crazy Eights. But others were ones Eliana seemed to make up on the spot. She would go over a long list of rules she wanted them to follow. And of course, while playing, would change all of the rules. When she changed the rules in the middle of a game, it was very frustrating. Nobody knew what we were supposed to do. In reality, though, our lives are not just a stagnant set of rules that have no room for interpretation and change. Some rules are meant to adapt with each new situation. This week we read from Parashat Va'etchanan. Moses continues his final speech to the people. The portion contains some of the most noteworthy passages in the entire Torah. The 10 Commandments are recorded for a second time. The Shema and the beginning of the Ve'ahavta are also contained in this week's portion. Each time I reread a portion of Torah, some new aspect seems to jump off the page at me. The lines of text that struck me this time are not the ones that we all have memorized because we recite them during each prayer service, but they are the following. And now, O Israel, give heed to the laws and rules that I am instructing you to observe, so that you may live to enter and occupy the land. You shall not add anything to what I command you, or take anything away from it, but keep the commandments of the Lord your God that I enjoin upon you. I, of course, am not the only one to have taken note of these lines. Rashi, a medieval French scholar, suggests that this passage simply means what it says. You literally should not add or subtract. If we are supposed to use 4 species on Sukkot to create the lulav, then do not create it with 3 or with 5. Ibn Ezra, one of the most distinguished Jewish biblical commentators and philosophers of the Middle Ages, teaches that this verse means you should not change it on your own and think you are doing it for the sake of God. Sforno, a medieval commentator from Italy, explains that this verse is a warning, that even if one knows the reason for a prohibition and creates conditions when it would make sense to change it, that one still should not take it into their own hands to delineate from what is said. These explanations seem simple enough. However, it seems to me that they do not really speak to the modern reality of Judaism. The reality is that much of contemporary Jewish practice is not based on the words of Torah. They are rooted in the words of Torah. We actually aren't really Torahitic Jews, but more so rabbinic Jews. We follow the laws contained in the oral Torah, explanations by the rabbis of how to be a Jewish in a world without a temple in which they made sacrifices. For example, in the diaspora, people living outside the land of Israel, many Jews celebrate 8 days of Sukkot and Passover. Yet nowhere in the entire Torah will you find a passage that talks about 8 days for either of these festivals. You will, however, find a passage that describes a 7-day festival. Some celebrate an 8th day because the rabbis added an extra day for those living outside the land of Israel. In my family, we even take this a step further because of family traditions. Growing up, my family kept 7 days of Passover, and Josh's, my husband's, family kept 8. So what do we do today? So today, as we figure out how we as a family will interpret all the Jewish rituals, we keep Passover, yes, you guessed it, for 7.5 days. We break it with what we call linner, a late lunch and an early dinner, trying to bring in both family traditions. I'm sure you're now thinking of your own family traditions because many families have their own tradition like this of how they interpret the original texts. Also, let's be honest, it has been a long time since the Torah was understood and interpreted in one specific way. Perhaps, I believe it even could be argued that there never really existed a time when there was only one interpretation of Torah. After all, at the original revelation at Mount Sinai, the text of the Torah states specifically that everyone in the nation experienced it. Commentators suggest that not only did everyone experience revelation, but everyone understood it in their own way. The text says where they were at. So where does this leave us? It is impossible to claim that over time, Jews have not added and subtracted from the Torah. Reform Judaism prides itself in adapting Jewish law to fit into our modern needs and allows for each individual to figure out Judaism for ourselves. One needs only to look around and reflect on the abundance of Jewish practice that exists in the world and look around in this room alone today. Later on in this week's Torah portion, Moses makes the following statement to the individuals who stand on the doorsteps about to cross into the land of Israel. The Lord our God made a covenant with us. It was not with our fathers that the Lord made this covenant, but with us, the living, every one of us who is here today. I think Moses' words apply as much now as they did then. Each and every Jew has the opportunity and responsibility to make Judaism and their relationship to whatever they believe God to be their own. Judaism is not something that exists in the past, but must be something that lives and breathes in the present. To me, the key to understanding those first lines of text is trying to understand what it means to be a part of a living covenant of the Jewish people. In my mind, the prohibition to add or to subtract things from the Torah does not refer to simply additions and subtractions, as Rashi stated. The essence of the idea is that we should not take our relationship to Judaism and God for granted. Intentional and thoughtful additions and subtractions should be embraced. It is more important for each of us to create a meaningful personal practice of Judaism and be part of that living covenant than following things blindly which do not elevate our personal Jewish lives. But why? Why should they be embraced? because these things are the things keeping Judaism alive in our modern day. The hard part, though, is that the additions and subtractions that we all make with regard to our personal Judaism have the potential to create divisions within the Jewish community, and indeed often do. Our challenge is to be intentional with our Judaism so that we can feel as though we, the living, are a part of the covenant described in the Torah, while embracing others at the same time in their quest to do the same. So, as we navigate the changes taking place in our own Jewish community, let us remember that each person has the joy of figuring out to use their personal Judaism to fill their buckets and uplift their lives. And even if their rules are different than ours, or like my daughter, they change them in the middle of the game, the important thing is to learn to live in community, embracing our different personal Jewish journeys and learning from each other and joining them into one elaborate quilt of engaged Jewish life. Shabbat Shalom. We return now to our prayer book. I don't know what I'm going to do tonight. My ark openers aren't here. Anybody want to help open the ark? Anybody want to help open the ark? I'll give you candy too, even though you're not like 12 or younger. So I maybe that's why they didn't come. They heard that the candy necklaces were out. I have Hershey Kisses though. That's all you were doing it for your candy necklace. I have fruit sticks and Hershey Kisses. I'll have to replenish my candy necklaces. As we open the ark, I invite you to please rise. We're going to turn in our prayer books to page 586 for Aleinu. Aleinu Shabeach Adon Hakol, Latekedu Al Yotzer Breshit, Shelo Asan Kigode Aratzot, Velo Samanu Kamishbot Adama, Shelo Sam Chelkenu Kahem, Vigor As our prayers draw to a close on this Shabbat evening, we turn our thoughts to our loved ones who are no more, the people in our lives who have shaped us into the individuals we are today. Tonight we remember 3 taken from us recently: Hannah Bine, Jerry Sipos, and Donald Kim. We also remember those who died in this past year: Jimmy Brownleader, Wallace Dunham, Sheila Parker, Francis Edelman, Jean London Eisenbach, Fred Cantor, Miriam Mimi Grossman, Elizabeth Saxey, Marvin Bender, Donald Ostern, Elaine Garver, Robert Feldman, Eileen Burton, Virginia Gordon, Bruce Dunham, Jim Bullman, R.B. Dickerson, Moni Mayer, Joanne Strickler, John Wormser, Robert Eisenbach. We also think of those who died at this season in years past, and family members are observing the Yortzeit, the anniversary of death. Eva Berenson, Mark Becker, Peter Bush, Elliot Cohen, Ben Glayer, Meyer Horowitz, Bernard Kaplan, Bertha Klein, Enos Copes, Barry Pick, Judy Phelps, Sue Prize, Maureen Rosen, Hilda Rotenberg, Eleanor Uden Saxey, Rosalie Sager, Aaron Selber Jr., Rena Schaub, David Stone, Dorothy Umfress, Charles Weintraub, Albert Weintraub. If there are others you are thinking of this evening, I invite you to share their names aloud if you wish, as my eyes meet yours. For all those names said aloud and those whom we hold in our hearts, we turn to the words of Mourner's Kaddish, page 598. And if it is your custom, I invite you to please rise. Yitzgadol v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach lirotev v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dekol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam ulamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh, v'yitzadar v'yitzaleh v'yitzalal shemei dekudasha b'richu, le'ela minkol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, ta'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Zikro nam levracha, may all their memories be for a blessing. As together we say, Amen. You may be seated. I'm looking around the room, but I don't think I have a board announcer. I have a board member. I don't think you were the name that, you weren't the one on my list. I'm not going to call out anybody, but would you like to read them since you're on the board, or would you just like me to? Up to you. Come up as a member of our board. I wasn't going to call you out because you didn't see them in advance though, because they...
Oh, so my sight reading is going to be tested.
I think they're good though.
Yeah. If not, I will take responsibility because that's what a board
Well,
member
I
should
will let
do.
everyone know I called you on the spot,
So
right?
whatever I say is wrong, it's my fault. Okay. Shabbat Shalom. I can get that straight. Thank you for joining us tonight for services. Tomorrow there will be Torah study in the social hall at 9:30 a.m., both in person and on Zoom. There will be a Shabbat minyan in the green room at 10 a.m., which is in person only. There will also be services in the sanctuary at 10:30 a.m., both in person and on Zoom. At 5 p.m. there will be a Havdalah hosted by the how do you pronounce this? Saxes on Zoom. Links for these, all these things were sent in the weekly email. The corned beef sandwich sale is on August 21st, 10 to 2. This is an important program for our congregation. You can pre-order online and just drive through to pick up your sandwich kits on August 21st. Please find the information in the weekly email. I understand we're a little bit behind in this right now, so let's get to it. Hadassah's back in Baton Rouge with a special wine and cheese event. Come learn about Hadassah's work in both Israel and the U.S. Roselle Unger, Executive Director of the Jewish Family Service of Greater New Orleans, will be the guest speaker. This event's open to all and will be held on Sunday, August 28th from 3 to 4:30 p.m. here at UJCBR. Shabbat happens every week and we need your help. If you're interested in helping with Shabbat nashes or onegs, please reach out. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Beautiful job since I put you on the spot. I'll keep it up here. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. It's hard pronouncing your own last name, right? Yeah. I had to ask you a few times, though, right? To make sure I was doing it. We're going to conclude our service this evening with the singing of Adon Olam, which can be found on page 625. 625. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yetzir Nivra, Li'et Nasa, B'chef Sakol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol, Levado Yimloch Nora Adon Olam, Vehu Haya, Vehu Hove, Vehu Yeh B'tifara Adon Olam, Vehu Echad, Ve'en Sheni, Leham Shilo Lechachbira Adon Olam, Beli Reshit, Beli Tachlit, Velo ha'oz v'ha'misra Adon Olam, Vehu Eli, V'chai Goali, V'tzor Chevli Be'et Sara Adon Olam, Vehu Nisi, Umanosli, Menat Kosi B'yom Ekra Adon Olam, Beyado, Afkid Ruchi, Ve'etishan ve'ayira Adon Olam, Ve'im Ruchi, Geviati, Adonai li ve'lo ira Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yetzir Nivra, Li'et Nasa, B'chef Sakol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam. Let us join together in Kiddush and Motzi. If you need the words for Kiddush, you can find them in the prayer book on page 123. And I invite you, if you are comfortable to please rise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu. Zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. L'chaim. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, it's gorgeous. Uncovered, beautiful. Let's join together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom. Please take some challah. Yeah, we did it on purpose. Just kidding. Shabbat shalom. Thank you. He's in Mandeville tonight. Yes, yes. He was there on Tisha B'Av. Saturday. They did a very different. They started Tisha B'Av, so like they did a very different program.